Awesome. All right. Dr. Gold, thank you for doing this interview for Black Stock Footage, where we're all about representation, we're all about knowledge and information and how people can use it to better themselves, better their lives, better their community. So, with that being said, introduce yourself, and I love your smile, I love your energy. Introduce yourself and your background and your credentials for me.
Sure. I first want to thank you for having me on the Black Stock Footage. This is amazing. You are the stock creator, Imani and Zebrina, and I just feel so honored to be here and honored for you to even come and do this for me. So thank you for that. That means a lot. I'm a medical doctor, board certified in family medicine. I went to medical school at UNC Chapel Hill in North Carolina and did my residency in family medicine at UTMB in Galveston, Texas. I am also a yoga teacher. I was stressed in medical school and I was like, I need help. My sister's like, take a yoga class. I fell in love with it. And I was like, can I do both? Can I be a doctor and a yoga teacher? And they're like, why not? So I became a registered yoga teacher about a year after finishing my residency. And I also specialize in natural medicine. So I find they complement one another when I do traditional as well as holistic medicine. Patients can get well long term. And if there's natural alternatives with less side effects that are evidence-based, I am all on board because I want to help patients feel better and empower them so they can live long, prosperous, vital lives.
I love that. I want to talk about, one, I want to go in a little bit of your inspiration.
Yes.
Of why you became a doctor. What was that intersection? What was that pivotal point? Before I get there, can you explain to the audience what's the difference between modern medicine or family practice and traditional medicine versus modern, or traditional versus like those different alternative medicines? So just kind of go through those different lingos and explain what that is.
Yeah, sure. And thank you for asking, because honestly, it can get very confusing. Sometimes I have to say, what the heck, where? But when we think of a family doc way back when, it's seeing the whole family. Now, a lot of things have been subspecialized. So you have internists that see mainly adults, pediatricians that see kids, but it's based on a kind of a sick model. You usually go to the doctor when you're sick. You may have a well visit, but that's once a year. There's not a lot of prevention or preventive visits where, hey doc, I'm well, I'm healthy, I feel good, but I want to stay that way for a long, long time. So as a holistic doctor, that's where I come in. I actually see the patients. I'm like, so what is going on now? How is your family life? How are you enjoying work or not enjoying work? You know, because if there's stressors going on, that can lead to illness. And if you can identify it sooner rather than later, you can do something about it. The great part, what I do too, is if people are sick, we get them well. But the goal also after that is let's get them to stay well. And I'll give an example, if I may. One of my patients came in, she was getting recurrent infections. And she had 2 young children. She just was not sleeping. And if you don't sleep, your body can't recover, it can't heal, and your immune system can go down. So we talked about healthy alternatives. She actually was fortunate to get a nighttime babysitter. But, you know, for those that are not always so lucky, getting friends or family or other people to help, and then also setting up healthy sleep regimens. Because sometimes you can sleep during the afternoon or take some cat naps or whatever, go to sleep. The house doesn't have to be perfect, because that was her too. She's like, oh, the kids are asleep. Let me start cleaning the house. And she'd go to bed late and wake up early. So, but sleep, prioritizing sleep, and then putting in healthy supplements. Anyway, long story short, she got well. I actually didn't even recognize her, because before she'd come in her pajamas because she was so tired. Her hair was all over the place and just exhausted. The last time I saw her, she was in the health food store. She was bright-eyed, hair done, just looked well. I was like, I haven't seen you in like a year. And she's like, I haven't been sick. And she was coming in almost every few weeks. I mean, it was like at least 12 upper respiratory infections a year, which is a lot. I mean, but some people get 3 or 4 a year, which is still a lot. So, but for her, she was getting so many. And now that she was taking care of her health, she wasn't needing to come in so much. So that's the holistic approach. Getting them well, treating the root cause of what's going on so they don't need you as much. It's not a great business model. My business coach has said, you're gonna go out of business. I'm like, no, my goal is to empower patients and have them feeling fabulous. And I'm great with when they know what to do for themselves. That's important.
I love that. I definitely see the importance of being able to have that family-oriented component, because especially nowadays, there's a correct me if I'm using the word, a pandemic or epidemic of loneliness, and a doctor can be a therapist as well.
Yeah.
In the sense of just being able to confide in that person about, your personal things that's going on and your health and wellness.
Yeah.
And so talking about that, what's your personal story, or do you have one, of what inspired you to become a doctor, holistic health and wellness? How do those two intersect and merge? Just start wherever you want to start and tell us the story.
Yeah, so my dad, he was actually really sick in his 40s. He was that workaholic. He immigrated to this country when he was 16, had the American dream of making lots of money, which he did. He was doing well, but he was not resting. He was eating fast food and just gained a lot of weight, and his blood pressure was ridiculously high. So his doctor asked him, do you want to see your daughters grow up? And of course he said yes. Well, he said, you have to change your lifestyle. And he really did take it to heart because he was not feeling good. So he started exercising. He trashed the junk food because, he knew if he keeps eating pizza and soda every single day, which he was doing as an accountant, he's not going to make it. And he wanted to walk his daughters down the aisle. So he actually exercised. We didn't really get to see him because he was working so many hours. So my mom actually said, go with your dad to the track, and we could literally not make it one time around, but after time going with him, we were able to make it around one time, then 2 times, and then, we got the grit. My dad's like, do you want to train with a coach? I see potential. And he's like, I wanted you to get a scholarship too, for college. I was like, okay. So we actually started running with Dad. It became a family affair. My mom got jealous. She's like, I want to run too. So she actually joined us, and we were running, we were competing, we were having fun, we were learning to set goals and eat well. So my dad's like, all right, so I'm running, but I want to give myself more energy too. So he started looking up nutrition, nutritious recipes. He was actually looking at Men's Health initially, and then there wasn't online at that time, so he just found good articles, I think from Prevention magazine. And anyway, he was just started cooking vegetables and stuff we never really ate much of, and just feeling better. And I noticed I wasn't getting sick. My dad also gave us cod liver oil, which I was not a big fan, but suffice to say, I didn't get sick. I was actually mad about that. I was like, Dad, I'm not missing any days of school. This is not fair. But it was good. I was getting stronger, healthier, running faster. And I just want to touch upon what you mentioned with loneliness, because I did what my dad was saying, and I did become a physician and all this other stuff, but there was a pivotal before that happened, was when my mom completed her life. So that was when I was 13 years old. I was really mad with the medical profession. There was a lot of reasons for her demise. I think it could have been prevented, but it was her time. And I always say, she completed her life when she was supposed to, but I was still very, of course, saddened by the affair. But what I realized too is there's things I can do to help. As I grew up, I realized I still want to be a doctor, and I want to help people get well long term. So as I was kind of immersed in traditional medicine, I honestly wasn't taking care of myself. I forgot all the stuff my dad was teaching me, or I shouldn't say forgot, but I just got busy, and I was eating some fast food. I was, people like, oh, there's ready-made meals. You don't have to cook. So I was like, okay, and just eating, on the go, if you will, and just not really exercising as much as I normally do. And then I was just so stressed from medical school. So I actually got really sick myself. I got a condition, it's an autoimmune disease called uveitis, which is inflammation of the eye. It gets very red and swollen. It almost feels like somebody punched you in the eye, and then also a dagger just over and over is jabbing you in the eye, and you're very sensitive to light. So I'd wear sunglasses wherever I was, because even indoors, the light was just so bright. And people thought, oh, you're trying to be showing off wearing sunglasses. I was like, no, I just want to see or just be out of pain. But, I did what the doctors told me. They said there was no cure for this. You're just going to have to, deal with it, and you may go blind from it as well. Well, the treatment was steroids, which was to help reduce the inflammation, and it did help me see, but they said long-term effects of taking so many steroids can be glaucoma or cataract. So you may need surgeries down the road, because those conditions can lead to blindness. So I was like, hey, I do want to see when I get older too. So I really did investigate natural remedies. But anyway, when I was literally in the dark, I was lonely, I was sad, understandably so. And I just really was like, God help me, I really wanted to know what to do. So thank God I did a lot of prayers. I asked family to pray, friends to pray for me, and I got better through some natural treatments, including laughter, yoga, which I can share more. That's what the premise of my book is, The 7 Habits of Extremely Happy People, all on the physiology affects psychology. You can actually smile, you can think happy thoughts, but it's not just that Pollyanna effect. It's starting to live well. So I changed my lifestyle of feeding myself. Like, I didn't make it a chore. I made it more of a lifestyle that you can feel better. What does a healthy person think? What does a healthy person do? What does a relaxed person do? So becoming that well person helped me make those better decisions easier, because I had the bigger goal in mind. I wanted to feel good. I wanted to take care of my patients. I want to have a family. I want to do all these things. But you have to have your health to do the stuff you want. I want to be there for other people. I can't be there if I'm not there for myself and if I'm not around. So I knew I was stepping in my mom's footsteps if I didn't take care of my health.
Wow. It's powerful stuff. In talking about, so your inspiration, your dad, your mom, the events that happened inspired you to go down this path of, being a healer. At the end of the day, because we have the labels, doctor and this or medical, you're a healer, and that's really, really cool. What would you say is your passion for healing? Like, when now, we know the inspiration of why you became a doctor, but why do you keep doing it? Why do you wake up every day? You go to your patients and you discuss things and you're healing. I mean, my wife was here having some things going on and you said, hey, pause everything and let's get some healing done. Like, that not every doctor does that. They do their job, but why go above and beyond to serve your patients?
Yeah, for me, it's a calling. I honestly, I would do it for free. I have bills outside of that reason, but for me, it's just to get people to feel amazing. And honestly, what kind of world will we live in if people are feeling better? Because I think so many people are suffering, so many people are hurting, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally. There's so many different reasons for it, but there's ways we can help each other. Sometimes just holding space for somebody, just being there, checking in on them. Even during the recent storm that we had, I just called my patients, hey, are you okay? Are you safe? Do you need a place? And some patients are like, Dr. Gold, you're my doctor, but I could stay with you. I've opened my home. We've had dinners together. We've had walks together. We've had yoga classes together. There's many forms of healing, but I feel like for me, it's do what it takes in a safe manner, of course. I'm not going to be like, everybody come over. But, for the most part, what I can do to share that you matter. You are an important person in this world and you're a bright shining light. I want your gifts to shine, because if your gifts shine, guess what? That affects somebody else, and that affects somebody else. And the world is just going to be a better place when we are working to bring out the best in us. And it feels so good when, some people don't know what great health is because they've never had it. They never experienced it. So it's like a good workout. If you never exercise regularly in your life, you don't know what all that energy and vibrancy or vitality feels like because you've never had it. But when you realize there's things you can do to feel better, and I share, some simple tools. This one is the smile. We all have it within us, but not everybody uses it. So just to practice this, it's to feel better. So it's not just when you're feeling better, it's to help you feel better. And again, you're not lying to yourself. You're telling yourself, this is what I want to feel. And everybody has a right to feel better.
What was I saying? Talking about feeling. Feeling is very subjective, right?
Yeah.
I feel something versus what's happening right now.
Right.
As a doctor, what do you tell people, when they come to you and say, hey, I'm feeling this, versus what you can diagnose? You see a lot more, whether it's with labs, blood work, and things. How do you explain to people, or what would you say to people to go from feeling to get help, to whether it's a doctor, therapist? What would you say are some of those signs where, hey, I'm feeling this versus you need to go explore some ways to heal and get help?
Yeah. So first, if you do have pain, that is your body talking to you. I'm not talking about soreness or achiness if you work out, but if you're actually in pain, don't ignore that. And a lot of times there are natural therapies. So I know sometimes we just want to pop the ibuprofen or the Tylenol. I'm definitely not discounting or judging anybody for doing that. I get it, and I used to do that too. But the problem is the side effects of just taking medicine or masking symptoms versus finding out what is the underlying cause. Because heartburn can mimic a heart attack or vice versa. And then sometimes literally you are having a really bad hernia and you're just, again, self-medicating, and you're missing the true diagnosis. So real serious things can be, missed if we don't, and if you wait and wait and wait, like my Aunt Susie, she literally was having abdominal pain. It got, sadly, it did turn out into colon cancer, but if they found it early enough, and she also had a family history, she would have got the screenings. I do believe she would have been alive today. You don't know for sure, but she never did, so I don't know. But the idea is there are tools you can do to help, natural as well as traditional. And I thank God for modern medicine too, because when people are really sick, my sister broke her leg, and thank God they were able to fix it. So, I think of using the best of both worlds. That's the important part.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Talking about, and our audience is predominantly Black, or of Black identifying.
Yeah.
So what do you think are some of those things? I was at USF, and they told me about representation in the sense of a lot of patients feel comfortable discussing their health concerns or health status with someone who they can identify with culturally or racially.
Right.
Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, some people they say more health is discussed in the barbershop, right, for men, But the idea, it's actually sad but true. And there's, it was on New Amsterdam on the TV show, but there was a gentleman, literally, this doctor went to the barbershop and was checking the guy's blood pressure while they were in the chair getting their haircut. But some guys don't go to the doctor. And I would honestly say, get well equipped to at least check your blood pressure. You can do that at a pharmacy. You can get a blood pressure cuff online. There's many avenues to check your vital signs. So your weight, and obviously if there's not much muscle there, you need to check what's going on. And I get it. Food, sugar, I love sugar too. Sugar tastes good, but unfortunately it can, and I'm talking about processed sugar, can make us sick if we eat too much of it. One of the studies have shown in, I think it was 2020 to 2022, the average American consumes 150 pounds of sugar per year. And in the 1700s, it was 4 pounds. So 1700s, 4 pounds of sugar per year. And now we do 150, and that's on average, 150 pounds per year. It's a lot of sugar. Now, do I say you can't have sugar? Of course not. You're going to just crave it if you can't have some. It's just how much, how often. So sugar is not necessarily bad. It's just the type of sugar. So can you get in some fruit? And I get costs and stuff like that. Sometimes you can get things on sale, or sometimes you can grow certain foods. It's a nice way if there's a garden, a community garden. Sometimes you can work with different places, companies. They sometimes ship in some, or they have extra from markets, farmers markets, especially when they're closing, and they give you a lot of stuff on sale or for free sometimes. But what I'm trying to say is there are ways to get some vegetables, get some fruit. Not always easy, but if we can start putting in what our body's intended to eat, you're going to feel so much better. And getting back to getting comfortable with the doctor, for me, it's education. So we need to go to where the populations are, and then also make it more comfortable for them to speak. Because sometimes, when I was in medical school, it was white men, and they were just much taller than me and just seemed a little overbearing. My attendings were like, oh. But yeah, it can be intimidating. So just knowing that we're on the same page. I mean, I don't know any doctors who really don't want their patients to get well. Sometimes they get so busy and stressed out, but when they went into this field, a lot of times they went into this field to help people. And that's why I'm in the field. And I really want that communication. So I have had Some of my patients, they don't call me doctor because they don't like doctors. They actually tell me that. I don't like doctors. I'm going to call you Tanya. I'm like, I don't care. Just as long as you get better, you get well. But finding what can be helpful. Maybe it's some pamphlets that we can create together. I'm happy to help with that. But just to know, like, for African Americans, for Caribbean Americans, I mean, heart disease is the #1 killer of all individuals, men and women. Women more likely after menopause, but they still are at risk if they're diabetics, if they're obese. You never have seen an obese person that's a centenarian or a person in their 90s or 100s. If you look at people that are much older, there's no one that's morbidly obese. It's just their body can't handle living long lives. So we're actually cutting people's lives short with the fast food life, if you will. Not everybody's going to suffer. Sometimes they call it the skinny fat. You'll actually see fat. It's called visceral fat, fat around the organs, which is really horrendous. It's literally almost like they're choking those organs. But the person looks thin, they're just flabby. They have no tone, no muscle tone, but it's very dangerous. And they also die young too. But there are things you can do, there's strategies. So wherever you're at, you can start doing some gentle movements, even in a chair. I teach some chair yoga. They're high intensity, but your high intensity might be some fast feet. I have a gentleman, he can't really walk. He does it in his recliner, and he does just shake his arms and his legs. Do what you can do. But the nice part is if you increase blood flow, it lets the love flow.
I love that. And speaking of love, I love the smiling component that you said. So my next question, how does someone infuse more love into themselves? And I know, touch on your specialty, which is the smiling. I love going to talk about your book a little bit, but let's, number one, define what love is in your opinion, and then how can different people, regardless of race, background, ability, disability, how can someone infuse more love into themselves and their community?
Yeah. Well, first, I didn't always love myself for the longest. I still work on it and I struggle with it because sometimes, you know what, when I was growing up, there were no black Barbie dolls. There were no black dolls that I saw. I mean, maybe from Africa, but they were all dressed in like that kind of garb, but not anyone who looked like me. It was usually blonde or straight hair, white. Barbie dolls that I saw. So for me, I used to think I was ugly and my hair was just crazy, just wild. Even my family is always like, what are you going to do for your wedding? My auntie was like, oh my God, you have so much hair. And it's like, So I used to think it was ugly hair or bad hair. And I just realized now it's beautiful. So I have to kind of rethink and reframe stuff. I do go in the mirror and I do say, I love you. You matter, you're worthy, and you're enough. I love you. You matter. You're worthy. You're enough. And I go, mwah, and I give kisses to myself. You can do this in selfie mode as well, but just to reiterate, because sometimes we feel like we're not enough, or I did. And then the other part is just to start showering yourself with some time for you, whether it's a minute or 10 minutes or 5 minutes, 15, whatever you can afford. Give yourself even 3 slow, deep breaths. Some time for you, for me time. It makes a huge difference. Honestly, if you look at studies, most of us are either, searching the web or spending some time on TV or video games. Or we can take 10 minutes for you, right? Or that hour of power or 30 minutes to thrive. They have all these different numbers, but pick something that you can do for you. And I try to do this throughout the day. Even today, I was getting a little hectic with work, and I was just like, you know what? I'm not being productive right now. I just need to take a time out. And I'll just take a pause and just breathe, and I'll just smile. And it sounds so like a smile, but just to smile and say, okay, what am I grateful for? You've always heard that, gratitude. It does, it changes your attitude. It raises that barometer. You think of a thermostat, if you have a thermometer, it's like, whatever your temperature is, but you can actually adjust the thermostat. So if you're kind of low and you're chilly or cold, you're like, all right, I need to raise it up. I need to feel warm and fuzzy. What can I do? Think of having that little list. I do create a list of things that bring joy. I always say start with your top 10. You can do more. I've actually came up with 100 things because I was like, I know there's more. I know. And I've added my heart and my lungs that are still working. Thank God. I can see, I can hear, all the stuff that is still working for you. I can actually stand up, I can walk. And not everybody can do this, but what can you do? Say you are, God forbid, in a wheelchair, but guess what? You have a wheelchair. So that is your wheels, right? Those are your legs. Thank God you have that so you can move around. So just being grateful for what we actually do have in this world, and every day above ground is a gift. So when you recognize you are here for a reason, you do matter, and your life matters, that can change perspective. And even just the simple word, get to. I used to always say, I have to go to work, I have to do this, and I literally felt even more stressed. Just changing it to get to, or I'm so excited about doing, and then fill in the blank. But just the idea that you get to do something, it's a choice. And my husband wrote a book on this. He just got his book published. I was so proud of him. But the idea is every day that you can choose the life you want to lead. And that's why clarity comes with time, reflection, taking time for yourself. You can actually think about what you want. Instead of living somebody else's dream for you or somebody else's life, you're living your life on your terms, doing what you want to do. Now, sometimes you have to finagle to get there, right? We're kind of working through some other jobs that we may not love, and then getting to that next step. That's okay. Just keep going. Don't ever give up, but still see your dream. Still get there. Take a step. What's one thing you can do instead of making it just a dream? It's a goal. What can you do to get there? And the same with your health. Like, what's one thing you can do for your health today? Instead of making it like, I can't do everything, so I'm going to do nothing. Something for your health is always better than nothing. Even if it's just like, I took one step. I took another step, or I just moved my arms, or I did a nice stretch. Anything you do for you, it's gonna benefit you if it's in a good way. Something that's uplifting, a smile. It's usually never gonna hurt you. You're gonna feel better.
Let's talk about that. I love the smiles.
Yeah.
I love it. So you wrote a book.
Yeah.
Essentially about smiling.
Yes.
Out of all the topics you could have wrote on being a medical doctor.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your book. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about what was your inspiration and what can people get out of your book.
Oh, thank you. And I should show a copy later, but I have one. First, for me, it was really hitting rock bottom. Like, honestly, I was so sick, and I didn't know. My doctors honestly said you could die from this too. I had Lyme's uveitis, and Lyme's disease, it was by my eye, which is near your brain. So, and the Lyme's disease can cause carditis, which is inflammation in the heart. I mean, it can cause really serious things. At the time, my sister's like, oh my God, I'm on the internet, I'm looking, and she's like, if you look, and I was like, I am not looking. First of all, I couldn't see, so that probably was a blessing that I couldn't Google and search on the internet. But I was like, I am not putting that on my radar. I am gonna get well, I'm gonna overpower. I don't know, something in me is like, don't fill your brain with stuff that, I just didn't want to be part of. I was like, I'm going to heal. And I did. I really have had no symptoms in years, which my doctor said that was not going to be possible. And I feel good. I can see from my eyesight, I can see small print, which my sister's wearing readers now. And she's like, oh, you don't have readers? Like, you had all these steroids in your eyes and, these steroid drops, and you had all these problems with your eyes, and you can still see fine print. And I was like, yeah, I can read the small bottles for supplement stuff, but it was doing my eye exercises. It was the laughter. So the joy part was, I think I started with the perspective that I'm not going to take on this illness, if you will. I never said I have Lyme's disease. I know I just mentioned that, but for me it was, this is something I'm going to overcome. I am training for wellness, for getting better. That was in my head. And then I said, okay, well, if I want to get well, what do I have to do to get well? So I knew the sick model because I learned that in medical school. And yes, I could just be woe is me and cry all day, which it's valid. And if you have tears, that's okay. Express and everything, but let it move through you. Don't live there. Don't live, like, living in anger and sadness was not going to get me better. It was actually making me worse. So I said, all right, I need joy. And I just started looking up, then I got help with the visual. My vision started coming back too, and I changed perspective. And with some of the medicine, I did follow my doctors. But I found out about laughter yoga, and Norman Cousins wrote a book, Anatomy of an Illness. He healed himself. He was a professor, I believe, at UCSD, but he was also an editor-in-chief at the New York Times. So he was, well rehearsed. Anyway, he was living in Russia for a little bit of time for work, and he got really sick after, diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, just a severe disease that is very painful and usually shortens your life. So he was in it. This was in the 1960s, and he was in his 60s, and they said you're basically going to die soon. And he was in a wheelchair at the time, but he found laughter. He found vitamin C therapy. So I did a lot of supplements too, and it was amazing. Like, I was following his journey, and he got better. He lived to his 90s, and I was like, I can do this. I'm going to get better. I want to live in my 90s. I can't control the future, but I can control what I'm doing now, and I just can influence the future. So I started eating better, getting my fish oil, because I was like, all right, Dad was right. I didn't like it at the time, and I stopped it, but it really did help. And there were eye supplements that I took, laughing every day. So the studies have shown 15 to 20 minutes of laughter. Dr. Miller studied this at the University of Maryland. It actually opens up blood vessels. You increase nitric oxide. And if you've heard of like nitric oxide boosters, people take this as supplements. Blood flow lets the love flow. So as more blood flow to my eyes started getting better. Even my doctors were like, what are you doing? And they also said, you have to take the medicine, or otherwise you're going to keep getting worse and worse. Well, I was building tolerance to the medicine. So they said, well, just give you more medicine. But again, more side effects were happening. So I did do the natural. I did listen to my doctor to an extent, but then I couldn't take it anymore. I was just like having too many side effects. So my doctor one day, I remember, she was like, see, I told you the medicine would work. And I was like, should I tell you I'm not taking the medicine? Now, I would never tell you not to take your medicine, but I would have that conversation with your doctor. She knew me, and as a physician, she's like, if you are using stuff that is natural and it's working for you, well, that's good, But, I never say just stop your medicine. But I did, and honestly, I did get better. So I got off the steroids, thank God. And you should never just stop it. Usually taper steroids, which is what I did. But I got in more and more natural, and then I was able to wean off those steroids. And thank God, because I was gaining lots of weight. People thought I was pregnant. They were saying, Mazel tov, how far along are you? And I'm like, what do I answer? But, thank God my eye got better and my vision improved. So that was the key. But laughing every day for joy, for peace. And again, if you have sad moments, you have hard times, it doesn't discount that. And if you feel like, I just can't laugh, that's okay. But try to bring in things when you can. And then guess what? That day shall pass too, or that moment. Nothing is forever unless you let it be. So if you refocus on the same things that bring you the same, the definition of insanity, you're never going to get anywhere. If your health is always like, oh, I'm destined by my genes, that's not true. Studies have actually shown it's only like a small percentage that the genes are affected, but it's actually lifestyle that is the expression of those genes. So you can have a gene, but doesn't mean you're going to get the disease or anything like that.
I love that. So you talk about there are different ways to essentially improve your health through laughter. What are some of those key takeaways? Or you got seven habits, right?
I do.
So talk to me about a few of those and how people can use those to better themselves and bring themselves more joy, bring themselves more love, all the things we've been talking about today.
Yeah. So the first, and I use the acronym LAUGH. L-A-U-G. G is times 3, and H. So the first laugh is live on purpose. So you need to make sure you're living your life with the goals in mind, things that you want to live your best life. And again, it's your life. So not what your parents want for you, not what society wants for you, what you want for you. Sometimes that becomes a habit, or a hobby initially, but then you go for it. I really think you should be happy. Every day you should wake up excited to start your day and live your day, again, on your terms. The other part is action. I mean, we can always say, I'm going to try to do this, or I want to be happy, or that's never going to usually work. I am, or I'm in process, or I'm training for, is usually. So planning to be happy with a smile